We're back with breaking news. Republicans may be moving ahead with an initial vote tomorrow to hold Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. It's all about whether the Justice Department has handed over to Republicans in Congress enough documents about the failed Fast and Furious gun walker program. It's a dramatic escalation of a campaign that began before Holder even took office. Just moments ago, Holder wrapped up his meeting with the Republican who's been leading that campaign, Congressman Issa. Holder ordered to hold a briefing about turning over more documents related to the Fast and Furious program. Issa rejected that offer.
The ball's in their court. They rejected what I thought was an extraordinary offer on our part. They have, I guess, until they decide, they have the ability to change their minds. But as I said, we made, I thought, was an extraordinary offer, and indicated to them that these materials have been accumulated. They are there for distribution to them. We will make, as I said, somebody available to brief on them, and we will answer questions connected to them.
Here's Issa from earlier.
We had, I thought, a very good meeting with the Attorney General.
That's Elijah Cummings. That is not Mr. Issa. Republicans, we're going to pull up Issa for you, but Republicans have held several hearings on the so-called gun walking program, even though it was cooked up by the Bush administration and shut down by Holder. Despite all that, Republicans are still moving towards a contempt vote at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California. He's the former federal prosecutor who's been outspoken in Holder's defense. Thank you for being here tonight, Congressman Schiff.
You bet. Pleasure to join you.
Now, Congressman, do you think Republicans will definitely go ahead with this contempt vote?
Well, unfortunately, I think they definitely will, and I think that's been the game plan all along. I wish I could say otherwise, but this looks like really a completely political exercise. In the beginning, the committee was demanding grand jury materials, wiretap application materials that the Justice Department was legally precluded from providing. They had to walk back from that, but now they're demanding information that is part of the deliberative process of the DOJ, which the DOJ has never turned over. But the Attorney General made an extraordinary offer to do that, to provide additional extensive materials, and that good faith offer, it appears, has been rejected out of hand by the committee.
Now, let me walk through this slowly, because I want to make sure that we all listening, and myself included, understand. The Justice Department has already handed over 140,000 documents, 7,600 pages turned over, 8 hearings before Congress. You said that they then requested things that the DOJ never hands over, has never handed over, and the Attorney General even said they were prepared to do that, and even at that, they're saying no deal.
Well, that's exactly right. And first they asked for materials that legally the AG's office is not allowed to turn over. Then they narrowed the scope of what they've asked for, but still asked for materials that the Department of Justice, for good reason, hasn't turned over historically. That is part of the work product of the office, the internal memoranda of the office. But the Attorney General, in extraordinary steps, said, look, let's not have a constitutional fight about this, even though it's the Attorney General's view that he's on solid constitutional ground. We will provide materials that we're not obligated to, that historically we haven't provided. Let's sit down at the table and work this out. But I think the problem here is that the committee doesn't really want to work this out, that the conservative base is really demanding these continuing political attacks on the administration, and they found it profitable to go after the Attorney General. If they reach an accommodation with the Attorney General, then that, I think, is disappointing to some of the conservatives. So I'm not sure this...
Very interesting, Congressman. You feel that the base of the party is so extreme now that Issa, no matter what the Attorney General says, Issa has to go forward to keep his base with him.
I think that's unfortunately true. I don't know at this point whether Darrell Issa could walk back even if he wanted to. And in fact, that die may have been cast weeks ago. This is unfortunate because it puts the legislative branch, which has an important oversight function, in collision with the executive, really, in my view, for no good reason except the politics of the moment. And we ought to be thinking beyond this moment. We ought to be thinking about what this does to the future relationship between the two branches of government and how the subpoena power is used and how it is abused. But unfortunately here, I think it's become now a completely political exercise.
Now, what does it mean in layman's term if the Attorney General of the United States is held in contempt? What happens? How serious is that? What happens to the Attorney General?
Well, the committee will vote on the contempt citation. It will then go to the House floor. Since the House floor is controlled by Republicans, presumably it would pass there. It then becomes a court fight, which won't be decided any time in the next several months. So plainly, if the committee really wanted to get the documents and wanted to get them in a timely way, the Attorney General has offered to provide them. But it's not really about getting the documents. It's about getting the political fight at this point. And unfortunately, I think the GOP committee would rather have the fight than the documents. And that seems to be the path we're headed on.
So you're telling me if they hold him in contempt, it goes to the House where the Republicans are in the majority. They go ahead and hold him in contempt. This becomes a court process that will take months when they could get the documents now since the Attorney General has offered this. So they're really trying to go through a campaign season of being able to say the Attorney General is in contempt. They're really not trying to get the documents on Fast and Furious in your judgment.
I think it's really clear. And if you look at the history of the investigation, of course, as you pointed out, the gun walking, this tragic, ill-conceived idea of gun walking, began under the Bush administration. But whenever witnesses in the hearings tried to talk about the origins of this program, which was shut down by this Attorney General, by our Attorney General, the committee didn't want to hear that testimony. They didn't want to look at beyond where this administration, where the origins of the program began. So it's been clear all along that the focus was trying to score political points against the AG and against the president. And also, it's been clear, unfortunately, and this is the greatest tragedy of all, that there's been no interest in the committee and indeed no interest in the House in trying to make progress on the very issue this is all about, which is the massive numbers of American-made weapons that are going into Mexico, fueling the drug wars down there. And when we could take steps to deal with that, and we don't, and we engage in this political circus instead, it's a real disservice to our country, and it's a disservice to our neighbors to the south as well.
Congressman Schiff, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
It seems to me that it is a sham and a shame that the Attorney General of the United States may be facing contempt when he's made this unusual, unprecedented offer to turn the materials over. It also seems to me to be the height of an insult to the American public that's facing so many questions in the criminal justice system to put this cloud over the Attorney General at a time that we're dealing with everything from high crime to voter ID laws to questions that are clearly important, even life and death questions. But some would rather play politics than to have us move forward and deal with these issues. I think people ought to be real clear at what we're looking at. We had this program start under the Bush administration. It was called Operation Wide Receiver in 2006. It was called the Hernandez case in 2007. It was the Mendrano case in 2008. But they don't want to talk to any of those people. They only want to hold this Attorney General up and then hold him in contempt even when he offers it over. You make your own conclusion. Some of us understand the difference between politics and due process.